What's going on, guys? Bengal again here, coming back at you with another video. Just got finished taking a huge shit, which I think is pretty representative of what you guys think my rankings are going to be. So I think it's fitting theme for the video of ranking receivers. These are the top a lot. I don't have an exact number for you, but there are a lot of receivers here. And here's the deal with the receiver position. We're doing a tier list, obviously elite all the way down to bust, although I will say bust is not technically, I had a first round guy that ended up not being anything. It's just like that's the worst category of receiver you can have. Mainly there are 2 to 3 receivers per team on here, which I think is the going like standard for contributors on a team. Like for some teams that utilize three receiver sets fewer than others, like the Packers, for example. They don't necessarily have a ton on here, but I think every team is pretty well represented, rookies as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. But as I mentioned, there are quite a few names on this list, and this is a super talented position in the NFL. So I don't want to waste any more of your time. There are a lot of players on this list. I'm not only looking at just stats because, that would change so much. Like Chris Godwin would be elite based on his season last year, but I like to look at the past few seasons. I like to look at talent. I like to look at situation, scheme. There are a lot more factors than just last season and their total yards or total touchdowns. So I like a receiver that's a complete package, someone that's an elite route runner, fantastic hands, can be really effective in short yardage situations, maybe even taking screens, and also effective in the red zone. So I'm looking for the complete package when I grade some of these guys. And some of them will be tough grades based on like not even being in the NFL potentially. Like Antonio Brown is not anywhere on this list. Antonio Brown's not in the NFL right now. It's very odd. Although I will say I would put him in elite. When Antonio Brown's on the field, as much as I hate him, and I really don't like Antonio Brown, he is intolerable. He is an elite receiver. So we put bias aside and personal vendettas aside. I hate Antonio Brown. But we rate guys appropriately, at least by my standards. I know you're going to disagree with them. No one wants to be told that the player is not as good as they think they are. Basically, I think the way that this goes is wherever I think your favorite player is, or a player on your team, fans of that team are going to rate them at least one tier higher. Let me make everybody happy. Put everyone in elite. But that's just not the way it goes. And we're going to start out with a controversial one, and that's going to be AJ Green. And I like AJ Green a lot. He was dominant in the NFL, has struggled heavily throughout his career with injuries, and he's just not the elite receiver that he once was. I'm not even sure that he's borderline elite in a league where there are so many talented receivers. I have to put AJ Green in star right now. He's an immense talent, but he's just not the player that he used to be. You got to stay on the field, and he doesn't do that. And I love AJ Green. I think he's capable of bouncing back into borderline elite, but if he can stay healthy and productive, that's a huge if. So I'm going to put him in star for right now. AJ Brown, great rookie. He was awesome at Ole Miss. I think completely underrated in the draft, and then had a great rookie year last year and a heavy run offense. AJ Brown is a fantastic player, and I don't think it's too early to throw him into star. AJ Brown is fantastic. I would say borderline top 20 receiver for sure, and that sounds insane, but there are so many talented receivers, as we'll see on this list. Allen Hurns, I'm going to throw into backup. It doesn't really offer you a ton. I don't really think he should be a starting 2 or 3 on any team. The Dolphins are in a unique situation where maybe he is, but I don't think he's better than Devante Parker, clearly. I don't think he's better than Preston Williams. I don't think he's better than Albert Wilson. I'm not even convinced he's better than Jakeem Grant. So Allen Hurns is going to slide into backup. Allen Robinson is a beast. He's going to go into star. I think a lot of guys are going to want him in borderline elite. Just to me, Allen Robinson is not a top 10 receiver in the league. He's just on the outside, and I think that's kind of where star is going to fit in. And I'm riding the hot hand on some of these guys. Like AJ Brown might be star potential, just because we've only seen one season of him. But I'm going to ride the hot hand there and go star, I think. It might be too early. Maybe I'm going to throw him back down into star potential. I think that might be better. Alshon Jeffery. I think Alshon Jeffery belongs in star potential as well. There was a time where he was in maybe borderline elite with the Bears and then was good with the Eagles. He's had some injury concerns too, and I feel like his level of play has dropped off at least last year. So I don't think star potential is too bad. When you talk about average is a solid receiver in the NFL. So I think Alshon Jeffery going in star potential is good for him. Amari Cooper. This is a really tough one for me because Amari Cooper is really, really good. I would say he's probably a near top 10 receiver in the NFL. It's so close. I think I'm going to throw him in borderline elite for right now. I can always move him around later based on where these guys fit. I just think maybe he's a slight step up from AJ Green and Allen Robinson, but they're both so good too. We're going to throw him in borderline elite for now. His real true placing might be star for the time being. We're going to see how things shake out though. Andy Isabella. Young receiver. He was a rookie last year at a UMass. Really fast, good route runner. Wasn't utilized a ton last year. The Cardinals passing offense started to get going under Kyler Murray, but it's too young, or it's too early to really tell on Andy Isabella quite yet. I'm going to throw him into serviceable for right now. And I think Anthony Miller is probably going to go into either serviceable or average. Serviceable isn't bad. I'm just not convinced that he can be like a plus starter for a team, and I think that's where average might be based on the league talent. So I think Anthony Miller in serviceable is fine. He's a good player. I don't think serviceable is bad. When you talk about a backup, that's like maybe the fourth best receiver on the team, borderline third. And I think Anthony Miller is better than that. I'm just not willing to throw him much higher. Adam Thielen. I think Adam Thielen goes in a borderline elite. He's a really good player as well, so I think that's a good spot for him. Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is a tough one. His production's been incredible. Last year was really the only down year of his entire career. He put up 1,000 yards multiple seasons. I want to say every year he's been in the NFL except for last year and maybe his rookie year, he put up over 1,000 yards. I mean, Brandon Cooks is productive, but it's more than just yardage. He's a good route runner. He's a great deep threat. Decent hands. I feel like people associate injuries with him, but it's just been some concussions, which is, that is bad. And it's just like that one huge hit in the Super Bowl that he got taken out. He's so talented. I think I'm going to throw him into star, though. He's just not a borderline elite guy. I don't think he does as much as some of these other guys, and there's so many different types of receivers. Like, not every receiver is made equal. AJ Green has been always a deep threat with size and has been technical as a route runner. Allen Robinson is a fantastic possession receiver, and then Brandon Cooks is a deep threat. We have basically three different types of receivers, all in the same category, and that's going to happen with a position like receiver. Brandon Ayuk. It's too early to tell on him. He's a rookie. He's never played in the NFL. I think I'm going to throw him into serviceable. First round pick. I liked him at Arizona State. It's just it's too soon to tell on him just yet. So I think serviceable is fine for the time being. I think Calvin Ridley is going to head into average for me. I mean, maybe that's a little low, but I'm not sure he's quite as good as A.J. Brown. He's a really good route runner, solid hands. I feel like I'm underselling Calvin Ridley in average, actually. We're going to go star potential on him, even if he's going to be at the bottom of that tier. CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to throw into average. That's where a lot of these top receivers are going to go, just because I think they can be really, really solid and definitely work their way up into star potential or star by the time their rookie season's over. But we just don't know yet because they haven't played. So these top receivers are all going to go into average for me. As we get to Chase Claypool, I think Chase Claypool is a backup level. He's a big slot, maybe. I don't really think he has the tools to be a true X receiver in the NFL. He's definitely not going to be a Z. I think he's a big slot. He's got decent hands. He doesn't really create separation at a high level. I think he's a possession receiver in the NFL at best. And again, we haven't seen him. We don't really know what he's capable of or what he's going to do in that Pittsburgh offense that loves to throw the ball so much. I think he can be good in that offense based on his ability as a run blocker. I think he's going to get on the field because he has great value. Maybe they'll use him as like a hybrid tight end. It'll be interesting, but I don't think he's a true receiver as his best value. But if he works to be a hybrid tight end, big slot, can slide down, play on the line, and then separate off, I think he could be a really solid player. But I just don't love him as a true outside receiver. Chris Godwin. This is a tough one because he's been solid his career, and then he had an amazing breakout year last year. I'm going to ride the hot hand. I'm going to throw him into borderline elite. Was one of the best receivers in the NFL last year. I think he jumped up from star potential 2 seasons ago to borderline elite last year. He's probably in that top 10 range, and that's what borderline elite is going to be for me. So I like Chris Godwin. I think that's a good spot for him. Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk, I think, is serviceable. He's okay. He has had some drop issues, if I recall. The Cardinals have a bunch of different receivers that they can go to. I mean, you look at like at least last year, Andy Isabella. They drafted Hakeem Butler, who was injured, but Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald is one of the greatest receivers ever. I don't think that's talked about nearly enough. And now they have DeAndre Hopkins. So, I mean, the Cardinals have a ton of weapons. I'm not sure how much Christian Kirk is going to play. Probably it will be a backup, but serviceable, I think, is his talent level for right now. As we get to, who is this? Cole Beasley? Is that what we're up to? This is Cole Beasley in a Bills uniform. Looks kind of awkward to me just seeing him play for the Cowboys so often. I'm a Giants fan. I've seen him play, for so many years with the Cowboys. I know he was with the Bills last year. It just seems a little bit unusual. Almost looked like an SMU or Texans jersey for a minute, but the helmet clearly is of the Bills. Cole Beasley, I think, is average. He's been productive forever. Has never really been a true number one or even a number two. But he's a guy that can come in and contribute. And we're going to throw him in for average right now. Now, do I think CeeDee Lamb's a better player right away? Yeah, I do for sure. But hasn't played in the NFL ever. Has played for many, many years at this point. Cole Beasley's like, 30? He's played for a while, been productive for a while. Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's a player I like a lot. I think he's better than Brandon Cooks, slightly. Do I think he's a top 10 receiver in the league? No. Do I think he's a top 15? Borderline. And I think that's about where star goes for me. So Cooper Kupp's going to go into star. This is Corey Coleman. Corey Coleman's a bust. First round pick out of Baylor, was terrible. And then has been a special teamer and out of the league ever since. I know, like, Giants fans are like, well, he's a great special teamer. But who fucking cares? But with, for lack of a better term there, not good. You don't spend a first-round pick on a receiver for them to be in and out of the league and play special teams. Corey Coleman's not good. Should not be starting on a team. Shouldn't really even be a backup. Bust, I think, is the right range for him. Sorry to be mean. Whatever. He's made more money than I'll ever see in my entire life. So hats off to him. You can use that. I'm not bullying him. Who cares what I think? But Corey Davis. Corey Davis is not good either. He's been more productive than Corey Coleman, but he's not good. I think he's a backup maybe. I mean, he's okay. He's probably a little bit better than this, but for someone that was taken inside the top 5 to, essentially not even play and do nothing his entire career, I think backup is a good range for him. Courtland Sutton. Ooh, this is a tough one. Courtland Sutton was good last year, and he was the only weapon in Denver. He's certainly better than average. He's either star potential or star. He's also still young. I don't think he's a top 15 receiver just because there are too many other good ones. We're going to throw him in star potential for now. That's where a lot of these young receivers are finding their spot. So I think Courtland Sutton in star potential is where I'm going to place him for right now. Very, very good player. Basically the way I see it is elite is about top 5. Borderline elite is around top 10. And then star potential is like just outside that top 10 range, like top 12 to or under the top 17, something like that. There's so many talented receivers. It is tough to make this list, in my opinion. A lot of players might be undervalued in your opinion, but that's fine. Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel had a good year last year, man. I think he's an average receiver. He's a weapon, can be utilized in a bunch of different ways, and I think that definitely increases his value, and he's perfect for the Panthers system that kind of works with some of those gadget players and is really creative with getting their playmakers the ball in advantageous situations. So Curtis Samuel is going to go into average for me. He's a good player. This is... What are we doing here? This is Deshawn Hamilton, or supposed to be, but he doesn't wear number 14, because I think Courtland Sutton's 14. Or is Courtland Sutton... Yeah, he's not 12. Courtland Sutton's 14. What is Deshawn Hamilton's number? Deshawn Hamilton's 17. So that's a mistake by the tier list creator. Shout out to him, by the way. Thiath, kind of bad. I forgot to do that at the start. But also, little mistake on his part. So you have to remember, please, 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 please listen. This is supposed to be Deshawn Hamilton, not Courtland Sutton. So when you see this list and you don't watch or listen at all and you see him in backup and you're like, Deshawn Hamilton, you think Courtland Sutton's a backup? No, I don't. I think Deshawn Hamilton is, though. He's like the 4th best receiver on that team now that they drafted Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. So that's a good range for him. This is Danny Amendola. He's been productive forever. He's about an average level receiver. He can go right next to Cole Beasley, and it basically looks like mirror images because they're mirrors of each other in terms of value and talent. They're average. I think that's fair. This is Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis is not good. Dante Pettis Was decent at Washington, and then hasn't really done much in the NFL. I mean, he's a healthy scratch sometimes, right? I mean, that's almost like bust range, right? I mean, I'm going to throw Dante Pettis into bust, perhaps. I mean, he offers little to no value at all for the 49ers. Now, he might play a little bit more now that Marques Goodwin's been traded, but he doesn't play over Kendrick Born, or he didn't. He didn't play over Emmanuel Sanders, didn't play over Marques Goodwin, didn't play over Deebo Samuel. What is he, the 5th best receiver on that team? I know Marques Goodwin's gone. I know Emmanuel Sanders is gone, but they brought in Brandon Ayuk, so I don't know. Dante Pettis might be bust range. DeAndre Hopkins is elite. One of the best 3 receivers in the NFL without question. I think you can make a very, very solid argument for top 2 and even top 1. He is now in the Arizona Cardinals. That matchup with Kyler Murray is going to be super, super fun. Hopkins is a monster. As we move on to D.D. Westbrook. That is D.D. Westbrook. It didn't look like 12 for a second. D.D. Westbrook's okay. I feel like all those Jags receivers are about okay. Like him, Keelan Cole, Chris Conley, who was there. I know he's not anymore. But all these receivers they had have just been like, they're not bad. They're okay. And that's where he is. I think serviceable is the good range for that. I know DJ Chark is better than serviceable, so don't get mad at me for saying they're all okay, because I know he's better than that. Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is like on the same level as A.J. Brown for me right now. Those guys can definitely move up. We've only seen 1 season from them. And Deebo's a beast. I really can't throw any of those guys into star just yet, as much as I might want to. I'm gonna settle down. Recency bias is real. We can't base it off just last season. I mean, let's not be ridiculous. Denzel Mims is now on the Jets, was great at Baylor, or at least showcased great traits. And that's what you draft for, traits over statistics, because stats don't matter. Ability does. And that's what you look for. Denzel Mims definitely has that. What is he going to do with the Jets and Sam Darnold? That remains to be seen. I'm going to throw him into serviceable for right now. He's about just a little bit behind Brandon Ayuk, in my opinion, because I just don't think he's in backup range. He's definitely going to have a chance to start in New York his rookie season for sure. Deshaun Jackson. D Jax has been one of the best deep threats in the NFL for the past decade. Where is he now? Probably star potential, honestly. He was injured a lot last season, but he's better than average, so I think star potential is a good range for him. This is Devontae Adams, the first one that everyone's going to get mad about me, or get mad at me for in this video. He's not elite. He's not a top 5 receiver in the NFL. He's very close. He is borderline elite. Really, really good player. Maybe the 5th or 6th or 7th best receiver in the NFL, which is really, really good. The top 10 to 15 is amazing, but Devontae Adams is not as good as DeAndre Hopkins. He just is not. And he's not as good as Julio Jones. He's not as good as Michael Thomas. He's close. And that's where borderline elite goes. This is Devante Parker. Enjoyed a breakout season last year. He was fantastic. Hasn't done much the rest of his career. I think star potential is good for him. He was great last year. Great. Finally living up to his first round pick out of Louisville. Can't rate him any higher than star potential. Is he as good as AJ Green has been historically? No. Is he as good as Allen Robinson? No. Is he as good as Brandon Cooks or Cooper Kupp? Not quite. Show me another season. We can talk about it. Devin Funchess. I don't like Devin Funchess that much as a player. He's on the Packers now. Was okay for the Panthers. I can't even tell you what he did for the Colts. Like, he was pretty much a whatever player. I really can't rate him any higher than average. I think average is a good range for him. He's going to be a better weapon than Aaron Rodgers has had outside of Devontae Adams, who's been injured a little bit last year, a little bit beat up. But Devin Funchess is certainly an upgrade over Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Geronimo Allison. As we move on to Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is a really good player who is extremely underrated, and I don't know why. It's like just the same thing with Odell. It's like Odell gets traded and Giants fans say he wasn't that good anyway. No. He was amazing. Was he a bit of a head case on the field? Yeah. Was he a bit of a diva? Yeah. Maybe you can say the same things about Stefon Diggs, but the bottom line is Stefon Diggs has unbelievable hands, had some concentration drops last year. It's kind of whatever. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL. It doesn't really get much better than that. He's on the outside of elite for me. I think he's a top 8-ish receiver in the NFL. I think he's a better player than Adam Thielen, despite not necessarily putting up the same numbers that Adam Thielen has. Stefon Diggs is incredible. Super underrated. Bills got a stud. I think you'd make that trade 10 times out of 10 if you're the Bills, and you would if you're the Vikings too. Stefon Diggs clearly didn't want to be there. It was a win-win for both teams based on the situation. But the Vikings didn't win that trade. I did an entire video on this. They won it based on them not having an alternative. They had to trade him because he was not going to play there and be happy, clearly. As we move on to Deontay Johnson. People got mad at me last time for Deontay Johnson, I think, but I mean, he just hasn't done much in the NFL. He has good potential. He's a decent route runner. He's had some explosive plays, but that does not a great receiver make. So we just haven't seen him be good enough for long enough. Average, I think, is the right range for him. Now, here we go. Here's another one. DJ Chark. Good receiver. Hasn't really been good enough for long enough. Although I think he is better than average, I'm going to throw him into star potential. He's definitely on the rise. I like DJ Chark quite a bit. DJ Moore, I think, goes into star. Underrated receiver. Really, really good player. But just with so many good receivers in the NFL, it's easy to lose track of some of these guys. So I think star is good for him. We got to start moving on some of these. You guys are going to be here for 50 minutes looking at me rank receivers. I got to speed up. DK Metcalf. Good year last year, but for the same reason that I'm ranking A.J. Brown and Debo in there, he goes in star potential. This is Emmanuel Sanders, now in the Saints. He's been a really good receiver for a long time. I don't think he's as good as some of these star guys, but I think he is in star potential for sure. It's a really solid player, and that's where these star potential guys are. Golden Tate is about average. He's not the player he used to be. Still can put up good numbers. Doesn't really create separation at an elite level anymore. He's just a solid kind of like slot possession guy that's been forced to play on the outside a little bit. But I think he's about average. This is Hakeem Butler. We don't know anything about him just yet. I'm going to throw him into backup. He's had one season and he was not healthy. So backup for him for right now. Henry Ruggs, average for the same reason that CeeDee Lamb's in there. Hunter Renfrow, solid slot receiver. I'm going to throw him into average. He was good last year. Shaquem Grant is more of a special teamer than anything. I'm going to throw him into backup. Jalen Reagor, we don't know too much about him just yet. Rookie. I think I'm going to throw him into serviceable. Same deal with Ayuk. Same deal with Denzel Mims. I don't think he's inside those top 3 elite receivers in this class, but I think could be a very good player long term. James Washington, I think, is an average. He's a decent player. I think he's about on the same level as Deontay Johnson. Maybe even be a little bit better. Jameson Crowder is a slot receiver. I think average is good for him. He's played a little bit on the outside because of the Jets, and he's the Jets' best receiver. That's not a good thing. He is going to go into average for me. Jarvis Landry continues to be the most overrated receiver in the NFL. He's just not that good. Doesn't really create separation. He's got great hands, though. You got to give him that. Great hands. He doesn't really drop the ball, but I really can't rate him any higher than star potential. People want to talk about him like he's up here. I'd probably rather have Courtland Sutton. I'd rather have a lot of these guys in star potential over Jarvis Landry without question. Jerry Jeudy, I'm going to throw in average as well. I think he's a monster, but we just haven't seen anything from him just yet, so we got to slow the roll on that a little bit. John Brown, I think, is probably an average. John Brown's really good for what he is. He's a deep threat, and that's pretty much it. I think average is a good range for that. This is John Ross. Is that John Ross? Does he wear 15? I don't know. This is John Ross, whether the picture is or not. I don't know. It's hard. He never even plays. He's looking at bust territory for right now. I'm going to throw him into backup. He somehow manages to get touchdowns on a lot of his catches, but he doesn't really have a great catch rate, like for targets to catches. Doesn't really get open enough as well. So I think backup's a good range for him right now. I don't think his career's over by a long shot, but he's just got to stay healthy and actually develop. Juju Smith-Schuster is in star. He's not borderline elite. He had a great season 2 years ago. Kind of came back down to earth without Antonio Brown on the other side. He's a slot receiver. I think star is a good range for him. Julian Edelman, another overrated receiver based on his playoff stats. It's like, yeah, he's going to have a lot of playoff receiving yards and playoff stats in general because the Patriots go to the playoffs and make a deep playoff run every single year. It's going to happen. He is He's solid. I really can't say much more about him other than that. Like, he's had Tom Brady, he's had Bill Belichick. He's been the main target, outside of Gronk. I don't think he's anything special, but I think he's better than some of these average guys. I think he's at the back end of star potential. He's not much more than that. Julio is elite. Amazing route runner, amazing hands, does everything. You can talk about, he doesn't score touchdowns enough, but his yardage is unbelievable. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. Justin Jefferson, I'm gonna throw him into serviceable. He's, again, not inside the top 3 elite receivers in the draft for me. He's close, but we're gonna throw him into serviceable. Rookie, don't know just yet. Don't know. Keenan Allen, I think, is borderline elite. Great receiver, great route runner. I do value route running really highly, but he's also got great hands. Borderline elite, I think, is a good range for him. Even though there's a bigger gap between like Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper, that might be like 5 or 6 or even 7 spots down the list. Amari Cooper might end up going into a star for me. We'll have to see. This is Kendrick Born. Not that good. I mean, someone freaked out at me in my 49ers rebuild when I talked about how he's not that good. But hey, I hope you're watching. He's not that good. He's going to go into probably backup. I mean, he really shouldn't be starting. He couldn't catch water if a boat fell in. Don't worry about whatever I was going to say. It's a bit of an aneurysm, as you can tell with some of my rankings. This is Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is a beast. I really, really like Kenny Golladay. He's another receiver that doesn't really create separation at an elite level. I think he's a similar player to Allen Robinson, but he's got great hands. I love Kenny Golladay. One of my favorite receivers in the NFL, probably top 5 or 10 favorite. But, I mean, he's just not as good as some of the guys above him. I think he's in that same range as Allen Robinson. These guys could all take a step up. You never know. Kenny Stills, serviceable. Maybe average. I mean, he's okay. He's okay. He's never really been that great. He's a deep threat as well. He's not amazing. He's not terrible. If you had to start him in a game, you'd be like, all right, that's not the worst thing. So I think that's a good range for him. KJ Hamler is going to go into serviceable as well. Same deal as some of these other receivers. And maybe he's even more fit to be a backup right now, but we're going to throw him into serviceable. I'll be nice for him because he's a rookie. Laquan Treadwell is an absolute bust. He was so good at Ole Miss. Terrible injury. Was awful in the NFL. Really, really bad. That's good for him. Larry Fitzgerald. If this was an all-time ranking list, he'd be elite. If this was 5 years ago, he'd probably be borderline elite. It's not 5 years ago. He is star potential to star. I'm going to throw him in a star. He's got great hands. He does not drop the ball. Just not the same player he used to be where he was dominant, but he's a very, very good player. Still, star, I think, is a good range for him. This is Laviska Shenault. He's going to go into serviceable as well. Another rookie drafted by the Jaguars. Hollywood Brown enjoyed a very good season last year. The big question with him was whether he's going to actually be able to play because of his injury. I think it was a list rank thing in his foot, which is like a weird broken bone named after, like, the guy who found the broken bone injury, if I recall. But he was good last year, man. I think star potential is a good range for him. Maybe not quite on the same level as like a Deebo Samuel or an A.J. Brown or even a DK Metcalf, but really close. He was solid. I think star potential is good for him. This is Marques Goodwin, now on the Eagles. He's about average. He's a deep threat. That's pretty much all he brings to the table. Hook 'em horns, by the way. But we'll see what he does with the Eagles. Maybe he and Deshaun Jackson are going to wreak havoc over the top. Hopefully not. Since I am a Giants fan, I would hate to see that. But this is Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones, I think, is star potential. Good player. Just not quite as good as Kenny Golladay on the same team, but they're comparable. He's just, I think star potential is a good range for him. This is, where are we on my list here? Mccall Hardman. Really solid player. Deep threat. Rookie last year. I want to say we're going to throw him in an average. I mean, he's developing as more than just a deep threat, but took Tyreek Hill a little while. It's going to take Mccall Hardman maybe a little while as well, but he's got a great quarterback to work with in Patrick Mahomes. This is Michael Pittman Jr. I think serviceable works for him as well. Solid receiver for the Trojans, and we'll see what he does with the Colts. Michael Gallup. I think Michael Gallup belongs in star potential. Good player. We'll have to see what he's capable of in this next season. A lot of good receivers now in Dallas. Michael Thomas, we're going to throw him into elite. He got so many targets last year. He does more than just run slants, but a lot of his game is running shallow crosses, and he's not really someone that's going to take the top off the defense ever. He doesn't need to be. He's a solid possession receiver who's got great run after the catch ability, great hands. Michael Thomas, even without that elite speed, is an elite receiver, I think, so I don't think that's crazy to say. This is Mike Evans. This might be my most controversial one of the video. I don't think Mike Evans is an elite receiver. He's not as good as Julio, DeAndre Hopkins, or Michael Thomas. I think he's close to some of those guys, but he's just not as good. I think he goes in a borderline elite. Solid receiver, amazing numbers. The Bucs throw the ball a ton. Mike Evans gets a ton of targets and a ton of catches, which amounts to a ton of yards and a bunch of touchdowns. His stats are really, really good. He's a really, really good player. Just I do not think he's in the top tier of receivers in my opinion. But he's very close to it. Mike Williams. I like Mike Williams a lot. He has not really reached his full potential. He's a solid receiver. I think star potential is a good range for him. He's more of a chain mover and red zone threat than anything. But I think there's a value to that. So star potential is where I'm going to place him. As we move on to, this is Miles Boykin. Miles Boykin's backup for right now. Hasn't done anything in the NFL just yet. Was a rookie last season. We'll have to see where his career progresses from here on out. This is Mohamed Sanu in a Patriots jersey. That's why that looked unfamiliar. He was traded for what, a second rounder? Probably way too much value to give up for an average receiver. But that's what the Patriots did, trying to go for another Super Bowl. But obviously it didn't end up happening for him. But I mean, Sanu's good, but he's not really one of the top receivers that you'd look for. But he's a solid player. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not that good. I think serviceable is at best for him. He's okay. And I was very surprised to find out it's not Marquez, but Aaron Rodgers says it's Marquez, so it must be Marquez, unless he just does not care. Nelson Aguilar is terrible. Is he a bust? Like, yeah, in real life. Where's his true ranking? Probably closer to backup. His hands just suck. And believe it or not, as a receiver, that could be pretty detrimental to your development and ability. Nikhil Harry. Injured a lot, but looked really good when he played. He's just not quite star potential just yet. He wasn't as good as those dominant rookies. He's going to be an average for right now. Odell Beckham Jr. seems to be the most underrated receiver in the NFL, with people ranking ridiculous players ahead of him in some rankings I've seen. Can I throw him in elite? No, I can't. Should I be able to? Absolutely. But he was injured last year. His numbers were terrible. But he played with a herniated disc like all season. That's unbelievable that he was even able to be productive at all. He's in borderline elite for now. I mean, Odell's a stud. I think people like to forget about how dominant he was. And he is one of the best route runners in the NFL. His hands are amazing. Concentration drops are another thing with him on occasion. His ability after the catch is unreal. Play speed, unreal. Odell is a stud. Just, he's going to drop down a notch based off last season because we have to take that into account. Injury or not. This is Olabisi Johnson. I mean, he's not very good. He's a backup. Played a little bit last year based on how bad Laquan Treadwell was. And he wasn't even on the team the whole year. But what do they call him? BC Johnson is going to go into backup. That's, I think, his correct ranking for right now. Phillip Dorsett. I think average is a good range for him. Was productive with Brady. Didn't do anything for the Colts, really. And he was a first-round pick, if I recall. I think average is a solid spot for him. Quincy Enunwa. Good player when he's healthy, just rarely is. I think average is where he belongs. He can be a number 2 receiver on a team. Just he can't stay healthy. And I think he's injured again. Randall Cobb, now on the Texans. He's an average receiver. Not the receiver he used to be up in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. He probably would have only been in star potential at the highest for me at the time. I think average is a good range for him right now. Robbie Anderson, now on the Panthers. Somehow extremely overrated. All he is a deep threat right now. Average is about where he's going to fall. He doesn't really offer a ton to a team. He's a deep threat where he'll catch you maybe 3 passes a game, but it'll go for 107 yards total, something like that, because he caught, a 50-yard bomb. He has great, average per catch, but doesn't really catch the ball enough, doesn't get open enough. He's a deep threat where he will he will get deep over the top, and score. But other than that, doesn't really offer you a ton. Not really a particularly good route runner. Robert Woods, I think, belongs in star potential. He's a good player, nothing special. Definitely the third best receiver that the Rams had, despite his production being near the top. One of those years when those three were together, obviously separated now with Brandon Cooks, and Brandon Cooks wasn't there for a tremendously long amount of time. Robert Woods is star potential. He's good. Just like he got a ton of statistics added up because of the two receivers that he's playing alongside with just being better and taking up more attention, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean he's a bad player. Just doesn't mean he's quite in the same tier that those other guys are. As we move on to Sammy Watkins, a really weird interview came out with him. Yeah, he's an insane person. Also, liked to party a lot in Buffalo, and is never healthy. I don't even think he's average. I think Sammy Watkins is serviceable, and he was taken at number 4 overall. The Bills traded up a ton to go up and get him, and he was not even close to the best receiver in that class. You look at Odell, way better. Mike Evans, way better. There are a lot to choose from that are way better than Sammy Watkins has been. He hasn't really done anything, so I think that's a good range for him. This is Sterling Shepard. It's listed as Sterling Sharp on my list, but no, this is not the Packers receiver or the Marlins pitcher. Sterling Shepard is average. I wish it wasn't the case as a Giants fan, but he's just a slot receiver as well. He doesn't really offer you a ton. He was a second-round pick. He's been a good player, but yeah, I cannot rate him higher than this. I just can't. Tajay Sharp, serviceable. Isn't amazing. He's okay. I think that's where okay players kind of belong. This is Taylor Gabriel. I think Taylor Gabriel's an underrated player, but I don't really think he's much better than average. I think average is probably about the place that he actually should go. As we move on to Taywan Taylor, another guy who's just okay. I think serviceable is good range for him. Corey Davis should probably be serviceable as well, honestly. I was a little bit mean by putting him into backup, but I mean, he just hasn't done anything. T. Higgins, of course, a rookie. I think serviceable is good range for him. He got drafted by the Bengals at the top of the second, so we'll have to see how his rookie season goes. Some good weapons there. I mean, Tyler Boyd, who we'll get to in a little bit right here. Let's rank Tyler Boyd now. Solid player. I think star potential is good range for him. He's not quite as good as A.J. Green, but he's certainly trending in the right direction. Scary Terry, beast. He's one of these best rookie receivers. So good last year with nothing. As the only weapon in Washington, he was a beast. Star potential for him. Terry McLaurin is a great player already. This is Tim Patrick. Do I really have to explain that one? This one is Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith probably belongs in serviceable. Maybe he's a little bit better than that, but he's going to be the third receiver at best for the Saints, behind Emmanuel Sanders and obviously Michael Thomas. Whether he plays a lot over Ted Ginn, I think that kind of remains to be seen, but he's an okay player. Not much more than that. T.Y. Hilton, one of the most underrated players of the entire 2010s. I think he's probably in star. T.Y. Hilton's a really good player. I think he's just outside the borderline elite range. Tyler Lockett, another underrated player. I think star is probably a good spot for him. Just above those star potential guys, in my opinion. Tyreek Hill, borderline elite. He is a weapon. He is unbelievable. Just not extremely polished as a receiver, but guess what? I mean, speed kills. Really solid player overall. Borderline elite range for him. And 3 receivers left to go. We got Tyrell Williams. He's a deep threat, doesn't offer a ton more than that. Okay hands, but the Raiders are actively trying to bring in more receivers because he's not exactly getting the job done. Will Fuller, another deep threat, but I think a deep threat with star potential. He's a really solid player. He just has to work on catching the football, and the last guy on our list is Willie Snead, and I think serviceable is a good range for him. He is okay. He was okay for the Saints, but he played with Drew Brees, and then he's been okay for the Ravens, and now he's playing with Lamar Jackson. So some good quarterbacks he's played alongside, but that is my ranking for receivers. We got a lot of them. This is a super long video, but this is what it looks like. I have 3 true elite receivers. I have some guys that are close. If I had to order this, I would say maybe it goes Odell, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. You could honestly flip these guys any which way that you want. And then Tyreek Hill's really close. I think maybe Keenan Allen, Stefon Diggs are the next two. And then based off how you feel about Chris Godwin last season and Adam Thielen and his a little bit of a drop off there, maybe you have something like this. But that is going to do it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.